is my name. I'm a leadership expert, and I've been doing fairly conventional leadership development in the last 17 years, everything from executive coaching with senior executives, team development, designing and facilitating leadership development programs, increasingly transformational, until I actually also discovered that, the way most of the companies and most of my clients are working and organized is just not functioning the way I think is able to survive and thrive in the future. And then when I came across what Dunia is doing, what Krisos is doing, what Corporate Rebels are doing, and everything that we're going to be talking about today is what I truly, truly believe is our future. So here I am. I really want to promote this because I believe this is a movement. And I welcome everybody, of course, not just to participate today, but also write your comments, your questions into the chat. And we will leave at least 10 minutes towards the end of our session today for you to get your questions answered. Okay? So here we have Dunia Reverter. She is the Krisos founder, and she is what she likes to call the transformer or coordinator of one of the pioneering projects in southern Spain. The company is called Indaero, and it's a unique way to transform towards self-management, to buy the company, and all of this without what we have come to know as bosses. So this is me now handing it over to you, Dunia, and I want to ask you, what brought you here? What's your journey? Let us know a little bit about yourself and how you came to do and be who you are today.
Yeah, okay. So it's a long journey, and I would have never thought I would be doing what I'm doing now. When I graduated from uni, I studied engineering, mechanical engineering. I feel like a psychologist now. And I had a standard professional career, I guess, in the corporate world. It's my first half of my professional life. And then I had a bit of a change, right? Things didn't go as well as I wanted. I thought everything was great, but when I got pregnant, things didn't go as well as I thought they would in my company. And we moved to London, and I started meditating, and I think that opened up a portal. Started doing yoga, meditation, and all of a sudden I was having a bit of a midlife crisis when I was saying, okay, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And why are we so dysfunctional? Like, we're all so smart and well-intended, but then you put us together and we don't make sense. At the time I was working in the city of London for insurance companies and banks, and I was seeing all the bureaucracies and dysfunctionalities and all the money that we were spending in programs that were going nowhere.
Right.
And I thought, okay, there has to be something else. And that's when I read the Frederic Laloux book, Reinventing Organizations. And it really helped me clarify what I wanted to do, because I've always been involved in change, but more traditional change. And then I realized, okay, this new type of change, which is cultural and aspiring to a new paradigm that is very integrational, right? The teal paradigm, as he calls it. Right? So that's what I realized I wanted to do. I want to help organizations jump to that paradigm. I no longer want to give little massages so that it feels better in this not great system. I want to aspire to that big jump, big radical jump, right? So that meant I needed to train myself. So I started working with a boutique consultancy on culture and organizational change in London, and it was like I just kind of took a leap and kind of just dove into the emptiness. A bit of a kamikaze move. It's a hard move when you realize this is what I want to do, but you're so used to earning money and having your lifestyle in the old paradigm. So this change is difficult. And one of my secondary missions is to help people that are starting to get to that point, help in that transition, right? Because I think we all need to transition, but it's a really scary jump.
Yeah.
So I started working on organizational change, and very early on I thought, okay, there's like bosses or CEOs or owners who are doing well currently are never going to want to give away power, seize power to the rest of the organization. So we need to buy them to transform them. So very early on, that idea came about. And then I started that journey of, do we need to buy them? Can we do it without buying them? I've tried both models. I've been a consultant of these sort of transformations in collaboration with K2K. And I came back to big U-turn to the conclusion, we need to buy them, because then the transformation needs to be radical enough and you cannot compromise it. And if the owner is there, then it's almost like you need to convince the owner, and it's scary. It's the owner's baby that you are transforming, and it feels very scary because we are challenging norms that we have been living with all our lives, right? And we are challenging all those norms and being quite radical in our transformations.
Yeah, it's a radical approach, and I have come to believe that exactly that element that you spoke about, the recognition that in order to make this transformation not just radical but also sustainable, buying the company is crucial.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
We this is why we set up this fund, Krisos, to buy them and transform them. But we also don't want to be or play gods, right? So the end state has to be an organization that belongs to the people that are in it. That's our idea of the ideal end state, right?
Right.
Or we feel that that's the legal representation that most adapts to what we are doing culturally. You can be a cooperative and be extremely hierarchical, and you can be a very progressive, decentralized organization and have one owner, right? But legally, probably what best supports what we are doing would be a cooperative. However, it doesn't need to be, and we're also exploring another end state, which is the steward ownership model, where the economic owners and the stewards, who are the ones in the company, the stewards run the company, and the economic owners get the advantage of the results of the sharing of the winnings, but do not interfere with the running of the company.
Right, because that's been decentralized and is in shared ownership with the staff that has been growing into that role, which can be challenging, as you already shared with me in another call. Yeah, I wonder if this is a good moment to go specifically into a wonderful program that you've already done, or transformation rather, that you are still in the middle of, but you already have lots of things, results to celebrate and to show for yourself. And the second project is already on the horizon, if I understand correctly. So would you like to share a little bit about Indaero and your role in that, and the specific process, the phases that you go through? And there are a couple of principles I also heard that you have that you really do not step away from, because they are kind of the backbone of this whole endeavor, to really walk your talk.
Yes, exactly. So we are very in Krisos, we are very inspired by the NER approach, the new style of relationships that was born in the Basque Country. And in fact, we are 4 partners, 3 of us, Javi, Xavi, and myself, who have led transformations in this style in collaboration with K2K, the consultancy that has been doing hundreds of transformations using this approach. And then the corporate rebels are the 4th partner, who are sharing this with the world, right?
The world, yes. Thank you, corporate rebels.
Contagious, which is kind of our idea. Is let's show to the world that this happens, this works, so that it can spread everywhere, right?
Right.
And the principles or values that are unmovable, and that make actually this strong coherence with those values is what makes these transformations very powerful, more than I've ever seen, and I've done change and transformation all my life, are things like transparency and trust, of course, that comes with it. And it's full transparency. So in these sort of organizations, there's no secrets, there's no information that an employee wouldn't have access to, including salaries of others, or you name it, financial situation.
And I understand that's one of the first things you actually do. Once the organization has been bought, the staff actually gets to talk about one of the most difficult things ever, which is money.
Yes.
And how to
we feel that it's I'll get through the stages. Let me finish just the values and I'll get through the stages. But it's very important actually that at the very beginning we walk the talk, because there's so much skepticism, right, on is this for real, right? So it's very important that to build that trust, transparency and trust, that we show that it's happening. So the other one that is linked to, I think, what you were going to mention is that we freedom and responsibility, right, which also come quite together, which is the basis for self-management, right? So we trust people, that people have the best intention at heart. We all make mistakes, but we all come to work to do the right thing. We might not manage. But we have a positive intention. So let's work on that, and let's trust that sense of responsibility that all of us possess, and then give the freedom, right, that occurs, right? If we don't treat people responsibly, then they will become like little children, right? They won't act responsibly then, and then we don't trust. So that's another one. And then another important one is long-term vision and generosity. So we also start with generosity up front, because we know that it comes back, right? So we're here to contribute. We're not here to make money and be rich. We're here to contribute to our society, to the planet, and to be sustainable, right? As a company, but because it's like a force. We want to be a force for good, right? For the system, for employees, for the people that are here, for our families, and society, right? So you only do that with generosity at heart, right? And we are so used to not doing that in the current paradigm, that it becomes simple things become very shocking, right? In our current paradigm. And then distributing power, right? So for us, it's very important as well that power is distributed, and the participation is distributed. And we do that in meetings, we do that in governance. So we split the way decisions are made, and we create different governance forums where the teams elect their representatives, right? So they're not imposed with somebody, but they suggest who needs to go to the different forums. And depending on the sort of decisions that we're making, if it's investments, if it's budgeting, if it's culture, salaries, training, or if it's clients, quality, they happen at different areas. And then finally, personal development. Because, and this is an innovation, actually. So it wouldn't be in the NER values. But the one thing that we are seeing, because we are very lucky to see the trajectory of NER for the last 20 years. So these transformations have been happening for the last 20 years. The first one happened in 2004.
Wow. Yeah. And it's amazing, at least to me, in Germany and in the United States, I've never heard of it.
Yes, the company is called Lancor, is in the Basque Country. They make motors for elevators. And they were with us in Indaero in Sevilla. So the elder ones were with the most junior just this week, exchanging experiences, knowledge. And it was very emotive, right, to see the similarities and at the same time the differences, right, because we have evolved the approach. So this has given us perspective, and what we see is, okay, what are the things that we could do now at the early on to make the model more sustainable, to accelerate it, to make it easier, or easier to stick, right? And one key pillar for that is personal development, because otherwise it depends a lot on the transformer, the person that goes there with the vision to do this transformation. But then once this person leaves, the organization starts decaying. And if the people in the organization invest enough time and resources into growing the inner growth, then they will be the agents of the change and the leaders of the change.
They will replace the transformer and coordinate
sustaining it in the future, and that's an element where we are trying to go a lot stronger. So in practical terms, what does this mean? It means that we share everything. It means that we do equilibrium of salaries, because we don't believe in inequality. So of course there needs to be a difference. We shouldn't all be earning the same, but the difference should be healthy, and we consider a healthy gap between who earns most and least in 2.5 times. Okay, from the bottom earners to the top earners. So that's already quite radical. And that is one of the things that we start with, because it becomes very obvious for everybody that, okay, this is for real. Okay, they were not just kidding. Doing it. One of the things that we do to also be coherent with these values, with the value of freedom and responsibility, is that we don't impose this change. So the people have to vote that they want this to happen. And in the case of the fund, even before acquiring the company, we will not acquire a company if we are not able to hold a vote with all the employees and at least 80% say yes to this future. So that is something. It's so simple to do that, but we always forget to do that. It's like
people who are concerned.
And then transformation becomes, you launch a program that all the smart people in a closed room have ideated. It's like, oh yeah, let's do this. It's going to be wonderful, and probably it is, but not consulting with anybody of the people that will be suffering. And then we spend so much energy convincing and fighting the blockages, right, and the resistance to that change. So in the sort of transformations that we do, they're so profound that there is no way you can have success if you have all that resistance, right? So people need to be a strong majority, and they need to decide yes before we start. And I've never seen a start of a transformation program be so smooth, like so fast, because everybody has had a chance to say yes, and then we start and everybody's backing you. Then the bumps start coming. The transformations are by no means easy.
If I may just interject, for this vote, I believe you also take the time to really have the employees have a real experience. So they get in touch with other companies and other employees. They can touch them, they can talk to them, they can ask the questions. They will learn that, no, maybe everything wasn't easy, but it's worth it in hindsight. So you really give them time to be informed and then make an adult decision for themselves.
Yes. In the Basque Country, what the NER companies would do is get all in a bus and go visit a company that already operates in this way. But if we are geographically distant, we need to be, we need to do it a bit different. For example, now for the company we are acquiring in Barcelona, we will be flying employees from Sevilla, from Indaero, from the Lancor, from the Basque Country, maybe some other company from the NER group, and we will be holding mini workshops where those employees talk to the ones of the acquired company before the vote, as well as providing them with lots of resources, because nowadays there's a lot more material, that videos that people can see.
Yes.
So yeah, it's very important. It's an important decision, so it has to be
Yes.
made, with conscience, with
Yeah.
clarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are some of the practical principles. For example, in terms of distributing power, I already mentioned we have those different governance forums, right?
Right.
The steering, which is more the strategic, more business oriented, protecting the shareholders' interest. It would be a typical management focus, right, in
Yeah.
a traditional company, but it's represented by people that were elected by their teams. So the people that go there have been selected by their own teams. I don't select who is in my management team. Like that team forms from all the other teams. Then there's the group that cares for planning and commitment and making sure the work gets done with quality and speed and respecting the client's needs. So their client is the customer, so shareholders, the customer. And then you have the group that takes care of us, people, with the relations group, the culture, making sure that we get closer to the culture that we aspire to, right? And all the typical human, I'm going to say a taboo word, because for us, human resource is a bit of a taboo because we don't consider humans a resource. So let's call it human relations, if we want to stay with the acronym of HR, human relations. So that group takes care of all those aspects, because a lot of the culture transpires with those policies, right? And there's a lot of change of policy, HR policy, that we need to do to show that now it's a different culture. And we do things to walk the talk, as we were saying up front, like, for example, this thing of the privileges of some people having a big office in a nice corner with a big window and others no, or parking lot or company cars. We kind of like unravel all of that and say, okay, there's no privileges here. Functionally, what do we need? Does this make sense for the company, for all of us?
Yeah.
But
The bigger picture. Yeah.
Semi-gods in our company, right? We're all employees. And that initially, we are used to thinking that that's going to be the non-important committee, right? Or forum. But it's actually the most difficult, most challenging, and most important forum, because that's where the essence of the transformation is happening. The others are a lot easier. This one is very tricky.
Yeah, and if I may say, maybe just quickly, listening to you, and this is not the first time, but I just want to highlight that to whoever is listening to us, that, so often you could think, oh, this transformation, that's probably chaotic. And, it's going to be, in German, we call it basisdemokratisch. It's like, oh, it's going to be endless meetings and discussions. But when I listen to you, it sounds very down to earth. It's very structured. You know what you're doing. And then there's also at least two things happening at the same time. One is you get a result. You get people elected, and those are the people that you actually believe should be in that position. And I'm guessing they rotate. And second, you already build skills for yourself. And third, you also gain trust in you and your colleagues that you're actually capable of steering this organization, because you're making decisions right from the start that are really relevant and impactful.
Yes, there's this myth that self-management means chaos and lack of structure, and it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
We substitute hierarchy, bosses, with structure.
That's right.
we take a lot of care on where decisions get made, how decisions get made, who has to be involved in the decisions, what's the approach to making a decision. We give a lot of care to that. And it is true that we spend more time taking decisions. However, we don't look for everybody agreeing. We are we look for a fine balance where we consult and we integrate but not everybody needs to be happy. We're all free and responsible. So if I need to make a decision, I will make it. I just need to make sure that I have consulted enough and that I am aware of all the possible risks that,
Right.
of what I am doing. But that somebody doesn't like what I'm doing is not good enough for me not to do. Yeah. And that makes the decisions quite robust, right? Because we share them enough, right? With everyone. And yeah, I mean, we spend a lot of time thinking of when do we vote, when do we take it to the general meeting, which forums. So it's actually very structured. It's true that at the beginning people are a bit confused, so we have to spend a lot of time training.
Yeah,
Training on how to facilitate, training on patterns, ways of conducting a meeting where you make a decision, when you structure a proposal,
right.
where you select a representative, giving them like a cheat sheet, let's say, right, on what is the best way to do this so that it's good enough, and we've all participated. Yeah.
Right.
So we train, we bring facilitators up front, so that that flows better. And the other thing that we are doing a lot is emotional intelligence, conflict resolution as well, right? So everybody needs to start from early on understanding themselves because what happens what happens in a hierarchy is that you don't get along with somebody and you spill your guts to your boss, and then your boss has to kind of figure out how to deal with the issue, right? And here you need to own it. You also need to own, you grow. We all grow, right? As responsible, free and responsible adults. And then we need to own our own conflicts as well. And that can be quite scary. So, and a lot of conflicts surface, right? I'm not used to having.
I'm guessing that even when people in the beginning have been consulted and they visited other companies, and then as they actually go through it, they realize, I may not be ready, or no, this is too uncomfortable, or something, resistance or something. How do you deal with that when somebody then afterwards kind of realizes that this is more than they can handle? Has that happened?
It happens all the time. It happens to all of us, right? And in fact, it's the process of developing, right?
Yeah.
If we were the whole time, we would never grow, right? So the way we grow is by falling.
Yeah.
It's just that ideally the fall is not too steep, and then when you come back up, you go higher than where you were before. So
Right. And you're not alone in this case.
as people start to struggle and falling, we need to make sure that that there's a way to support them so that they can process what's happening, and they can use that as an opportunity to grow and be even higher than where they were before.
Right.
But
So you don't leave them alone. You can catch them when they fall, and you're there for them so they can actually translate it.
On day one, that is my responsibility as a coordinator. But very early on, what I try on day 2 and 3 is that there's enough people that care in the same way and that are doing that, right? So that the organization can do that. So, and that's one big role of the Relations Forum. That's what I was saying is one of the most challenging ones, because they care of the health of the relations of the company. So those sort of issues will come up there. That's where the mentors come, from, or the people that kind of go with you and help you mediate a conflict, for example.
Yeah, I wonder if this is a good time, because I'm looking at our time. We have about 15 minutes left before we go into questions, if there are any. Can you give us an overview of the phases so that we kind of can imagine what they are, and how long does it typically take from end to end? But also, what are the phases?
Yes. Okay, so if we are buying a company, the standard acquiring a company process, okay, that has to be done with whoever's selling it, right? But let's just assume that we agree on price, that we've done our due diligence, looked at all the numbers, lawyers are happy, right? And then we say, okay, now let's do the vote. So we need to make sure that the employees want this, right?
Right.
So that in 1 or 2 weeks, we can have it, right? And now it's going to be in 1 week, we're going to present and bring those people over and have these dynamics where people are going to get to ask questions, talk. Then they're going to have a week of reflection and possibly asking more questions, reading documents, etc. And then we come back and let's do the vote, right?
Right.
So then we start. If we were not buying the company, but if we were a consultant, yeah, then there's a prior phase to the vote, which is you need to make sure that the owner of this company is ready for this. Yeah, because it's going to be challenging for them. So it's the most common problem is that the owner is not ready, thinks they're ready, but they're not ready.
Yeah.
They become the boycotters of the transformation, right? And it's frustrating for the consultant that is doing that, which is why I decided I don't want to do that anymore. I want to buy them. But anyways, if you want to be a consultant, which there's also space for that, and K2K have done hundreds of transformations in that way, then you need to make sure and give it enough time, right? So I would say 2 to 3 months to get that alignment and test and make sure, work with the owner first, and the belief system of the owner to make sure that they're ready, and make sure you have a strong agreement with them that if things become a bit harder, you're not going to boycott this, right? How are we going to stop you from interfering? Yeah,
Right.
because I'm going to be meddling with your baby. And by default, your baby is a reflection of you. So I'm going to be that you don't like. It's a reflection. So how can I constrain you from
Right.
with it? So that's that first phase. Then once there's a vote, we start, right? And then I would say that the first thing we need to do is make sure that we know everybody. So we spend about 2 to 3 weeks interviewing everybody, establishing a connection with each employee. And that is almost like an X-ray. So we call that the diagnostic, right?
Okay. And let me just say, we're talking about companies that are about 40 to 80 employees, maybe big, right? So that we're not talking about months and months and years, but this is doable.
And it's doable. And if when they become a bit larger, and if we want to accelerate that process, it's also possible that we interview 2 people that are colleagues.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be one-on-one.
Right.
And also, normally, what we do for the diagnostic is that the coordinator is not alone. So several of us go and we interview, we debrief, we share the results of the interviews, and what we found, and then we can accelerate it, right? But I think it's very important that everybody gets a chance to talk to us and establish some sort of a report, talk about what frustrates you, what's your potential, your strengths, where do you see yourself, how can you grow here, that sort of. We also use that to assess the bosses in the company, who they are, what is their style, and what do we need to do with them, because of course we need to shake off the organization. We cannot leave a boss, especially a very strong leader, with their team, because then there won't be space for the team to self-manage. They will continue to depend of that person, right? So ideally, then we do a bit of shuffling, and we put those bosses in other positions that are rewarding enough. So that's something that we are testing, which is kind of what do they want? What are their aspirations? Yeah. Normally, we put them in front-end positions like sales, business development, product development, PR, culture, even, and then we once we've done that, we start the process of co-creation. We ask for volunteers And there's volunteers then that raise their hand, and we form a group to establish what the new organization would look like. And there we just need to make sure who are the teams, who will be in each of the self-managed teams, and how are they structured, right? It doesn't need to be much of a change from what the organization had, although there's some structures that help the self-management. The more vertical you are and autonomous you are in satisfying a customer need, the better. So we favor client integration if the company is big enough to do that.
Right.
So either by sector or by group of customers, or even by customer, you have a very big customer.
Yeah.
Then like the engineers, the production people, they're all servicing that line, yeah, and that helps a lot for self-management. Helps the agility, the speed,
Yep.
etc. And then the coordination, and then we worry about what do we do with those bosses, right? Where do they go, so that the organization would look okay, and also that there's not teams that are too small or too large, because too small is boring and lonely, and too large is very difficult to get people to decide and collaborate if they're too big. And then we also form a group of volunteers that are going to be looking at the salary equilibrium, and what are the right salary bands, categories that we want to have, internal categories. What are the categories that we want to have in the company? And then how do we, once we have the output from the organization, how do we put it all together and come up with a structure, a process that is fair, that makes sense for assigning salary bands to everybody, right?
So these volunteers for the salary equilibrium, they go ahead and present then proposals that make sense to them, that then gets, I don't know, with consent decision making or so, then others are invited to make it.
And both the organization and the salary equilibrium affect everybody, and are big enough sort of decisions that we have to take to a general meeting.
Right.
We do general meetings every month where we share the results, and we create those spaces where everybody gets to participate and see how the company is going. And decisions that are very important also get ratified in the general meeting. The way the vote of we want to do this transformation got ratified, right? So, the new organization, of course, we have taken it through all the different teams. We have consulted enough before we do that. However, it's very healthy to take it to the general meeting.
Yeah, and I'm guessing as you bring things to the general meeting to get ratified, the decision-making process gets faster and faster, because people get to trust each other more. They become more skilled at facilitating and participating in these decision-making processes. So that's one of the things that I think is a big obstacle to people saying, can we do that? To say that, is that your experience, that it tends to get faster and more smooth over time?
Yes, absolutely. We don't take everything to the general meetings, just like the very important things that affect everybody. But it's not like we are voting for. We don't. In fact, we don't favor the vote. We favor more the consent decision making. It's something that you cannot do in a general meeting, right? But sometimes there's the really important ones we need to ratify in a general meeting.
Of course, yeah.
It needs to be trained. It needs to be practiced in each of those forums. We practice a lot the dynamic, and at the beginning it's a bit frustrating because people don't understand what's happening, and it feels slower. But then once we get to practice, it feels very nice, because you make decisions. It feels robust. It feels safe to decide in this way.
Yeah, you don't have to keep revisiting something.
So the hierarchy, I mean, there's a very fast way of deciding, which is my way or the highway. I'm the boss, and this is it.
Of course.
Boom. And in some situations, that might be the best way, right? If we have a fire, I'm not going to be asking for consent. I'm going to shove you to the exit.
But that should be the exception.
So depending, but we don't. that's kind of the sort of thing that we don't want to do as a norm. And also everybody voting and everybody being agreeing with something can be quite paralyzing, right? So that middle ground, the consent decision making, or the advice process, right, where you consult but you give enough freedom to the proposer, I think it's a very neat solution. And it's a bit slower than being the boss and deciding to do something, but it's a lot more robust. And the implementation is faster because you have taken into account enough of different perspectives that help you make a decision that is more robust, that is more adapted to the need.
Yeah. And I wonder, so a couple of things that I think, because I'm the timekeeper here, there are amazing numbers. I mean, like real interesting numbers and facts that you were already able to collect from Indaero, for example.
Yes.
Could you just give us a little bit, because this is interesting, not just for people like me, of course, but for investors and of course for company owners who are thinking of doing this, because they want to see not just their company grow, they want to be thriving and healthy, of course, but also in terms of numbers for the future. What did you discover, just in terms of?
Yes, and this is something because we have already like a proven track record, right, from all the transformations that NER has done. And it doesn't cease to surprise me, because of the beauty of it is that the results just come. And you cannot pinpoint, it's because we did this project, it's because we won this account, it's because so and so did a fantastic job in. No, it's because everybody is rowing in the same direction, and somehow things start to happen the way we want it. So for Indaero, we increased salaries by 30%. They are in average, okay? They were particularly like below the standard, or what we consider the standard for the salaries that they should have. So actually there was a significant increase of salaries. And what happened after the first year was that we grew by 50%.
Whoa, by 50%.
50% in 1 year. We also shared, not only we increased salaries by 30%, but we shared 25% of the profit with the employees as a way of a bonus, which was not happening before. And even though we did that, we maintained the profitability, let's say, right? Like the ratio of EBITDA to sales, to turnover, stayed the same. So we stayed as productive as we were, even though our salaries increased by 30% and we gave a bonus of 25% of the profit.
Unbelievable. I mean, that is amazing.
Yeah. So
I heard that, excuse me?
Which means that our EBITDA also increased by 50%.
Yeah. And I also heard about one of the rules that you bring in is that through this time of uncertainty and transformation, you guarantee all employees that they will not be fired.
Yes, we don't like to fire people because it creates a huge sense of insecurity and fear, and it blocks you from improving, taking risks, and growing, right? And changing. So we promise anybody who starts a transformation with us will not get fired, and that way that fear factor goes away. And then new employees that come on the first 1-2 years, if you don't adapt, if you don't integrate with us, okay. But then after that, we don't like to fire people unless there's a major breach of trust.
Yeah.
We are all humanly, we're good people. So let's work to put you in a place where you can express your full potential, because we all add value. Yeah. And never will we fire for economic reasons.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. So if you steal money from us, okay. But for economic reasons, no.
Okay. Yeah.
If nobody wants to work with you, okay, provided that you're still integrating, but something's going on here, right? And I mean, we are not used to solving these sort of problems through conversations, right? But in the end, if you have direct, healthy conversations, you will get to the bottom of everything, right? So we just need to do that when we have a problem. The solution when we have a problem is not people like a used Kleenex, right?
Yeah, we need to put the information out there. So the numbers are amazing. I'm looking also, I'm German originally, so I'm looking at also at you could say the Mittelstand crisis of small to medium enterprises, company owners that need to find some succession solution. They often shy away from it. They started too late. Nobody in the family wants to take over. And their baby, if they think of giving it to, some private equity, somebody buys it, how do they know that they will keep their baby healthy and safe? So this, I think, is a wonderful third opportunity that needs to be put out there to people who may have a mindset that you could call conservative, and they live in rural areas, and they could listen to this and find, is there anything that you think they might have difficulties with that they need to know now? Or what are the main things that they need to get ready for if they were to seriously consider approaching you or an organization that is ready to help them transform in this way? What is it that you want them
to
get?
Say, come and visit us. We organize expeditions in English, right, for the world, expeditions for the world to come to Bilbao. And in the future, it also will be other areas of Spain where we're doing these sort of transformations, so that we can take you through this exploration and you can get to see the companies, the owners, the coordinators, the employees that work in these organizations and are operating like that. We've been doing these expeditions. I think we've done like 13 or something like that already. And if it worked, like, it's a great way of resonating or not. We've had a lot of people that are very excited and want to make the next step, and many people that say, no, this is too radical, this is not for me. Even so, you get a lot of ideas of things you could do to progress further with the culture of the organization, even if you don't want to be as radical as what we are. So I would say, in first instance, come and visit us
and get a real taste and talk to people that have actually lived it and are living it right now, and other company owners that may have been skeptical at first as well and can now really look back and tell their story.
Yes, so we've created a platform called Jobs with No Boss, jobswithnoboss.com. And there it's a portal where we post job opportunities in companies that don't have bosses all over the world. It's by no means complete. So if you know of any company that also is bossless, let us know and we'll add it to the platform, and then any job vacancies will pop up there. And through that platform, we're also organizing these expeditions. So anybody who wants to come to Bilbao, get in that site and sign up for the next expedition. I think there's one in June. And we'll also be in the future organizing through that portal as well, master classes.
We have a question here. I just want to make sure that it gets answered. Is that okay? It's Paul asking, how did you identify Indaero and other companies as potential acquisitions?
Yeah, I mean, the traditional way you do M&A, right? You talk to a few financial M&A firms, ask them what they have in their portfolio. Normally, people that want to sell their company contact these financial advisors. We have an advantage that we play a bit lower than the traditional private equity firms. We target small companies, 30 to 150 employees.
Right.
It's our sweet spot because that's where the transformation is faster or easier to handle with one of us.
Right.
We work in couples for the first year or so. And then we don't care too much about the sector, frankly. We care that there's people in it, at least 30. Otherwise, the advantage of the sales management is not that obvious. And then that they're not too dispersed. I mean, we look at, for a cultural transformation, what's ideal, right? So, for example, if they are too dispersed geographically, it's more difficult. So, ideally, they're more concentrated in one facility, or just a few, and not much more. We are not too picky. So long as there's people and that they want to do the journey, we're happy to work with them.
Yeah, and from what I remember also about Indaero, what was quite special and unique is that the CEO and founder was somebody who was kind of actually tired of being a CEO. He actually wanted to be much more in business development, product development. So he was ready to let that go. And he actually stayed in the organization in his dream role, which is actually quite unique and fantastic, right?
In the business development area. Yeah, he was feeling too much weight on his shoulders. And after the COVID crisis, he had a big scare, and he didn't want all that responsibility on his shoulders. But when we told him about our ethos, right, he really liked it. So it becomes a competitive advantage for us when we are buying companies, because of what we were saying before. The owner feels like their baby is going to hands that are going to take care of the people, so they don't feel like they are cheating the people by selling the company and abandoning them.
Yes. And also, I understood that in our pre-conversation is that already now the second company that you're about to buy near Barcelona, they had heard of you. So now it's not so much you going out there and chasing maybe the right company. Now you're creating already step by step a reputation for yourself, become magnetic, and company owners approach you.
Yes.
Which is neat.
Yes. We've had several that from hearing what we do, they want us because of our style.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we do have a couple of minutes. I wonder if you want to share maybe one story that is particularly dear to you as the transformer / coordinator for Indaero. What stood out for you?
Yes, I know. We talked about this. I know the story you want.
You like?
I mean, I love the drama that results in a big moment of so I get a lot of energy from that. So whenever I go to Indaero every week, I say, okay, what's the drama of the week, right? To me, that's the opportunity for growth. And when you're a coordinator and you try not to be always full-time in the company, right? So that you can be distant enough that you can observe it and then see it and not get too involved in it, but and then help them resolve it, right? And we had a drama that was very stuck in our organization between two teams. The production and the quality team, always, of course, you produce, then there's bad quality, then it goes back, and organizing themselves and shifts and this and that. And there was a lot of conflict there. And we held several sessions with them separately, and we felt, okay, this is going to be very difficult because they were very stuck in their conflict, right? And they were not able to see that to resolve a conflict, you cannot aspire for the other person to change. You need to see, what can I change to make it go away, right? But it was the whole focus was no, the other one needs to change. Well, okay. Nothing is ever going to happen if you look for that, right? And on the second day, we had this major shift. I mean, it's also nice to sleep it off, right? Because then the next day we had this major shift, and then all of a sudden, we unblocked it, and all of a sudden, all this past traumas and situations that were maybe misinterpretations started to come to the surface, and they started to be processed, and then all this empathy started to come, and the colleague saying, oh, you saw it that way, but no, I didn't mean it that way, because. And then we ended up kissing and hugging, the big guys, from production, and they're hugging each other and kissing each other after the meeting. I talked to you right after coming from that session.
Right, yeah.
Such a high, because it's just this major block that just kind of...
Yeah, and I want to highlight two things that I remember, because I listened and watched our conversation that I recorded. One was, of course, your role, or the transformer / coordinator role. Like you said, that requires a maturity and experience, expertise, and also this unique combination that you shared with me, which is the business acumen, everything finances, so forth. And then, of course, culture, coaching, mediation, emotional intelligence, etc. And you played a significant role that this cathartic moment, as you expressed it then, was able to happen because you reminded them of something that they had learned in a training that, is illustrated with the iceberg, that what they were arguing about and in conflict about was kind of the tip of the iceberg, but that there was something underneath that needed to be spoken, and you spoke it. And I think that seems to be the catalyst that the transformer needs to have the capacity for, and the skill, but also the capacity, where you said the problem is up here, we can solve that, and you did. But what's underneath is that we need to remember who we want to be and choose to be, so that we are the culture that we say we want to be. We need to love each other and be empathetic and listen to each other. And that seemed to have made the shift. And the wonderful result you shared with me also is that they made a commitment to go to lunch every first Friday, which is, of course, a wonderful ritual to manifest actually this shift into the conversation, into the culture that they want to be. So happy for you. And I can only imagine how filled up you were as somebody who can contribute and witness this shift. Yeah. Oh. Well, I don't know if there are any other questions. I haven't seen any so far, but I think we are coming to the end. And I just want to thank you, of course, Dunia. I love your energy, your passion. I hope we get to meet in person sometime, maybe even this year. I am so happy to learn from and with you. I am so grateful that you're doing the work that you are doing, that you're willing to spend your time also in a call like this with me to help me spread this message. It's a movement. And whoever watches this video or is on the call right now, if you're interested in more information, of course, please reach out to me, to Dunia. There's the opportunity. I'm going to be sharing also the links to the NAIR expedition that actually you, Dunia, are facilitating in English.
Yes.
We'll see and take it from here. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we close?
No, thank you very much for being such an enthusiast and sharing this with the world. It's a big element of this is that people know that this is happening.
Exactly.
For me, it was. What really moved me is to see that it's not utopia. Others are doing it and it works.
That's real.
So thank you for the important role you're playing in all of this.
Thank you, Dunia. I hope to talk to you again. All the best. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Looking forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.